Hello TransByDef, my name is Morgan Fay and this is my introduction video. So a little about myself. I'll be turning 39 this year for the second time. I am married, working on the 8th year, and I have 5 wonderful children. Well, sometimes wonderful. Like most trans women, my narrative is pretty similar. I knew at a very young age, since probably around the age of 4. I knew the actual definition of gender identity disorder by the age of 7. And at the time, the amount of information available for trans people was very limited. Beyond Rocky Horror Picture Show, there was no role models to look up to. So since that was decidedly not me, I just made the choice to suppress it and to emulate my male cousins. So I lived that way for the majority of my life, almost like a permanent state of chronic depression, and I learned how to fit into society as the role that it cast me in. But it was never me. So this actually brings us to our topic for the week, which is coming out stories and tips and advice. So my coming out story and how it worked with my marriage is pretty unique from what I've been able to read. A lot of times you'll see that coming out destroys a relationship, or that it transforms the relationship into something more of a platonic sisterhood. In my case, it was very different and very unexpected. We had already been married for about 6 years, but the last 2 years of that, just before I chose to transition, we had been separated. Me and my wife were best friends, but we couldn't get the romantic side to quite work. We had all the pieces to make the puzzle fit and to be happy, but we couldn't actually get them to interlock. Something was missing, something just wasn't right. And by the time, after about 2 years of separation, I spoke to my wife and talked about divorce, because we needed to move on, we needed to free ourselves so that we could try to find happiness. Well, truth is that I just kind of wanted to free her. My mind had turned to thoughts of suicide, and I was planning on waiting a few months to go by, and I was probably going to check out of life. Just for the heck of it, I decided to go ahead and look into transition again. But the amount of information that was available at that time, which would have been 2012, very late 2012, was vastly different than any other time I looked into it before. One of the first things I came across on the internet was a transition video here on YouTube, and it just totally changed my mindset. For the first time, I realized that transition was something that was really possible for me, that it was a viable choice, and that it could work. So this happened just a couple days after I had talked with the divorce, and within that end of that week, I already had a counselor, an appointment for a counselor, and I had hormones on order from New Zealand. So I talked to my wife, kind of let her know what was going on, and her response was very unexpected. She was livid. I always expected that she would have been very supportive, but she was upset. And it turns out that she was upset because she was under the impression that I was trying to exclude her from that portion of my life, from my transition. So we kind of got together and we talked about it. And as things developed, she dropped a bombshell and made that, in the past that she had been attracted to a female, and that it was not something that she wouldn't have considered. So this last year, we have gotten back together. Our relationship is stronger than ever before. My wife has since come out as gay or pansexual, and the pieces that weren't fitting were because we were just not the right people at that time. I was not genuine. I was someone pretending to be someone else, and my wife was not in the relationship that was really right for her. And now everything kind of works together. So it's amazing that, for me at least, my decision to transition didn't end the most important relationship in my life, but instead it saved it. So that was fantastic. I also have 5 children, like I said. and they all have been incredibly supportive. My youngest daughters, in fact, we've gotten closer than ever before. At first they of course thought I was joking with them, but now they're more than happy to announce to their friends that they've got two moms. So that's really great. Uh, my friends I grew up with, most of them have scattered, so I don't see them on a regular basis or really at all anymore. But I do talk to them sometimes, and they always knew something along that lines about me. So when I actually told them, they were all very open-minded about it. One of my friends even said, hey, it's about time. So again, no problems with those relationships. My own family I spoke with, my mom has been incredibly supportive. I've talked to her, years ago about the possibility of transitioning, and during that time, without my knowledge, she actually educated herself on the subject. So when I was talking to her about it, I didn't have to explain what it was. She already knew, and she already had old VCR tapes that she recorded of previous like Oprah shows and stuff that she began to disseminate through the family. So my family's been very supportive. Really, there's only one member of my blood family that has kind of ostracized me, but that's primarily just using my status as trans as an excuse for other feelings she has against me. So I never expected her to really be okay with me ever. So all in all, it's been a great amount of acceptance that I found, far more than I expected. I did decide to transition at work, and my original idea was that I was going to start transitioning. I was going to start going full time at work about 6 to 7 months after I started taking hormones. And I started taking hormones by the time they got here. It was in January of last year. So my expectation was that I'd start around July, which coincided with my birthday month. So that was kind of significant for me. But I just wasn't patient. And I think that's a very common trait amongst a lot of trans women, is that when we decide to do it, we want everything done right this moment, right now, and we can't wait. So I transitioned into being full-time about a year ago, back in March, in the beginning of March. And the 2 months previous to that, I actually kind of did this fly under the radar. I went into kind of a goth look, a goth scene. So I still, went more feminine. I grew out my nails, painted them black, but I painted them. So it was kind of a testing the waters kind of situation at work. I work with a lot of policies at my particular place of business. So I knew what our policies had changed back in the beginning of 2012 to put gender identity and gender presentation as part of the non-discrimination clauses. So I knew my job would be safe. And when I came out to my boss and my boss's boss, they were also very supportive. There has been some backlash that I've had in my life, but the amount of which I expected, which versus what I received, has been very small. And I've discovered that when you present yourself as confident, when you give a no apologies kind of attitude, and you're willing to be open and willing to educate people, you find yourself being able to turn people's opinions from disapproval to supportive fairly quickly. People who originally had issues with me going into the fitting rooms and trying on women's clothing, because I do work at a retail store, now they're chatty friends with me. So it's incredible to see how people change, and it really helps restore some of your faith in humanity, at least in my experience. Obviously, my experience has been a lot better than there has been for a lot of trans women. So, in some ways, I kind of feel guilty about that. So, transition for me has been fantastic. I don't have horror stories. It has just been one giant liberating experience where I have finally be able to become who I am, and the only thing I regret is that I did it so late in life. But I can't hold on to those regrets, and that's an important thing. You cannot hold on to those regrets, because it will destroy what remaining portion of your life that you have to live as yourself. So, do it and don't look back. As for tips and advice, I'd say take the time to make a plan and kind of stick to it. And this is kind of a little hypocritical of me because I was so impatient that I did everything in a rush. But the important part is that you don't want to be caught off guard, especially in the early portion of your transition. Um, when you first begin to transition, you first begin to go full time, this is when you're going to draw the most amount of looks, the most amount of criticism from strangers. This is also going to be at your weakest point. This is when your decision is the most tentative. So you really need to kind of have that moment to make sure you have the emotional strength to get through those first few months. And if that means that you need to kind of transition quietly until you get to that androgynous phase after the hormones have started to do their magic before you go full time, then that's probably a good advice there. Not one that I took, but it is one that I would give. So I hope to see you in future weeks, and please come again to TransByDef. Again, my name is Morgan Fay, and have a great day.